Joint Committee. Can I remind everyone that the meeting will be recorded? Members of the committee and officers should switch their cameras on but switch off their microphones until they wish to speak. Those observing today's proceedings should have their cameras and microphones switched off at all times. Mobile phones should be put on silent mode. So firstly, moving to item 1 on today's agenda, I have received apologies from Sir Ian Wood, so Stanley Morris will be his substitute today. I've also received apologies from Councillor Stirling, and we have Councillor Owing substituting for her today. Is there any more apologies that I'm not being made aware of? I'm not seeing any hands. Now turning to agenda item 2, appointment of chairperson. As you will be aware, in terms of Standing Order 7, the chairperson will alternate between the constituent authorities. For the ensuing year, this position now falls to an Aberdeen City Council member. Therefore, can I seek nominations for chair of the Joint Committee? I'll bring in Councillor Gillian Owen.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'd like to propose Christian Allard and seek a seconder.
Councillor Radley.
I'm very happy to second that.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Stewart Adams had his hand up. It's down. Councillor Owen's hand's down. Okay, I'll now hand over to the chair, Councillor Allard, to take us through the rest of the agenda.
Thank you very much and welcome everyone. And thank you very much for Councillor Owen and Councillor Radley. I'm delighted to take the position. I'd like to thank as well Councillor Stirling and Councillor Yule for the work we've done as convener and vice convener, chair and vice chair. Shall we go straight away to a vice convener? Have we got any nomination for vice convener? Councillor Yule.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your appointment. I'm very pleased to be able to nominate Councillor Anne Stirling, who I know will do a great job as vice convener.
Have we got a seconder?
Thank you, Chair. Pleased to second Councillor Stirling as vice chair. Thank you.
Okay, are we all happy for Councillor Stirling to be in absence to be vice chair? Yes, thank you very much. And thank again Councillor Stirling not to have been the chair for the last term, but also to be now appointed as vice chair. Determination of urgent business, there are none. Determination of exam business, there are a few of them, I suppose. We all agree about them. At that point, I would like to ask the committee if we will be happy to move up item 16 before item 14, just to make sure that we've got the Net Zero Technology Center phase 3 update before we go into the Digital Challenge Fund. Are we happy with that? Thank you very much. So item 6, declaration of interest, transparency statements. Anyone? Councillor Yule.
Thanks, Chair. It's in relation to item 8. On page 17, there's a reference to NHS Grampian being a duct partner. I am a member of the board of NHS Grampian. Having considered the objective test, I don't believe that is a declarable interest, so this is therefore a transparency statement.
Thank you, Councillor Yule, for a transparency statement. Jennifer Crow, online.
Thank you, Chair. I normally do a statement on behalf of the Opportunity North East Joint Committee members. So what I would like to do is indicate that we have interest in, obviously, Opportunity North East, Bio Aberdeen Limited, Food Hub NES Limited, and myself, I'm also Director of ETZ Limited. Having applied the objective test, we do not consider that there's an interest to declare in the meeting because funding and practical funding is actually agreed through the government and aligned with the tripartite agreement.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say also that I'm on the board of one as a transparency statement. We got Professor Edwards next.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. So I wish to declare an interest in item 14 because as Principal of the University of Aberdeen, I feel I should declare that the university as an applicant in one of the projects being recommended for funding under delegated authority. And I also note from the appendices that we're referenced as a partner in the Aberdeen City Council-led Aberdeen Smart Events project referenced on page 7. So just for completeness, I'm declaring both those interests.
Yeah, just taking clarity, it's a transparency statement, Professor Edwards.
So I was going to seek advice, Chair, because in terms of the objective test, clearly we could be in receipt of funding based on the decisions. So it'd be helpful to receive some advice.
Do you want, do we seek advice from legal?
I think it would be helpful to know whether I should recuse myself from that item.
Or we'll take a 5 minutes recess for you, Professor Edwards.
Okay.
Just before we
Thank
take the recess, Councillor Radley.
Just in terms of item 12, a transparency statement. I am a member of the board of NESTRANS, but it's just a transparency statement.
Back to Councillor Euro.
My apologies, Chair. I was so fixated on the NHS, I completely forgot about NESTRANS. So could I make the same transparency statement that Councillor Radley has just made?
Thank you very much. Can we take a 5 minute break for Professor Edwards and legal to sort out if we were going to do a transparent statement or if Professor Edwards got to leave the room? Thank you. And we are back in the room. Want to take Professor Edwards, if he's there, on his transparency statement or declaration of interest? Professor Edwards.
Yes, Chair.
Would you like to make a transparency statement or a declaration of interest? Have you
Well,
decided?
Yeah, Graham hasn't spoken to him yet.
Oh, you've not spoken to him yet. Graham, yep, go ahead.
Yes, Professor. So yes, the legal advice would be that I mean there appears to be a connection, but it's a matter for you to determine whether you think that's an interest. So that's just a question of whether you think a reasonable person would conclude that it would have an influence on your decision making.
So I think if I apply the test that I would apply at my own institution, and that I would apply in other funders that I've worked with, I think because the Joint Committee is making a decision about funding that would be allocated to my institution, my preference would be to recuse myself from item 14.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks very much, Professor President. Thank you for legal to help us on this. Any other declaration of interest online or in the room? No, then we'll go straight to the next item. 7 minutes of previous meeting of the 13th of February 2026. Are we happy to agree about the minutes? Are they accurate? Any statement? No. Very good. Thank you very much. Item number 8, Aberdeen City Region Deal Quarterly Dashboard Update is from page 9 to 34. Mr. Buse?
Thank you, Councillor Allard. Just a few points that I'd probably like to raise from within the dashboard. The duct network extension, as set out in the original business case, was seeking to deliver 25 kilometres of a duct network. It's exceeded that, and we're in discussions with the project team at the moment. The expectation is that we may bring a report back around September, looking to formally close that project off, but we wanted to share the news with the Joint Committee that it looks as though it's exceeded its target and will be within budget as well. The RGU Digital Innovation Lab, we've previously discussed trying to arrange a visit for members. I believe that is now arranged for December this year, and they'll do a demonstration of that facility for members of the Joint Committee. The Digital Challenge Fund, there's a fuller paper on the agenda later on. We brought business case through the Joint Committee previously, and part of the update I wanted to share in this section is that we actually had 29 applications after opening that for a period of around 3.5 to 4 weeks. So really good response to that. What I also wanted to clarify is that we previously mentioned that the Port of Aberdeen, we were awaiting their decision on whether they would proceed with the second phase of their project. They then decided not to proceed with that, and that meant that the unspent allocation of funding that they had was returned back into the Digital Challenge Fund as had previously been agreed by members. So the total value of the Digital Challenge Fund therefore increased to £3,251,778 following the reallocation of £848,077 from the Port of Aberdeen 5G project. We also noted to members at the previous Joint Committee that should that money return, we would also need confirmation from Scottish Government that it was happy for us to reallocate their funding into the Digital Challenge Fund, and we've had written confirmation from the Scottish Government that they were happy for us to do that. As a result, the Scottish Government contribution to the Digital Challenge Fund increased from £1,175,888 to £2,023,965.
Thank you very much, Mr. Buse. And I shall ask, after you made a statement about asking the government just to make sure that we can move that money around. If we got similar issues right up to the end of the program, are you quite confident that the government would let us move budget around when we ask?
The government recently published their deal closure guidance. It gives scope to make requests as we move towards deal closure. In terms of how government would respond, I wouldn't be able to answer that. We're the first deal that's going through closure, so there isn't really a precedent set in terms of how open they would be to any movement of funds. But we do have regular correspondence and meetings with the government, so it's a question that I can ask them and bring a response back once I've spoken to them.
I just don't want to encourage anything happening, but it's great to have that understanding with government, to have that flexibility right up to the end. Any questions? Online or in the room? No question. Oh, Jennifer Crow, yes.
Not specifically about that project, but I did want to provide an update on one of the projects in the dashboard, Chair, the 5G one pop-up network, but I'm not sure if it's the appropriate time to do that. I wasn't sure if you were about to move on or you were still on the Port of Aberdeen question. So it was just to indicate I was going to provide an update in agreement with the programme manager.
No, happy to do an update if you wish.
Okay. When we discussed the 5G pop-up network extension at the Joint Committee, we agreed we'd get regular updates because we had some challenges and issues technically with the first project, and it was to report the second project has moved forward very successfully, has demonstrated benefits to the manufacturing processing business, both in terms of automation, digitisation, health and safety, and also addressing some hard to fill jobs and locations, so really supporting the sustainability of that business. We've now moved on to survey a third site, and again the technical feasibility is all very positive. It is linked to animal welfare in a farming environment for poultry, and therefore we wanted to keep the Joint Committee up to date that the technical issues have been resolved, and actually this private 5G network approach is actually having very positive benefits in sites that need access to high capacity, high competency in terms of broadband access for visual and automation in both sensors and also equipment. So if the Joint Committee is comfortable, we will continue to progress this project through to the end of the funding period available through City Region deal.
Thank you very much for this very positive update. Any other question or remarks? No? Happy to approve. Thank you. We'll go to the next one, item 9, the program closure plan, page 35 to 44. Mr. Buse again.
Thank you. We brought to Joint Committee's attention previously when the governments had published their closure guidance, we provided, I would call it an outline plan at the time, recognising we wanted to give an indication as to the speed at which things would need to move, but also being quite transparent that we hadn't had the opportunity to try and work that through in terms of what did that workload look like, what would we need to do. One of the things that we flagged previously to the Joint Committee was that there was an ask within the government's guidance for a final evaluation report in addition to the final annual report. The expectations of what would be included with that were reasonably substantive, and early market testing indicated that could come at a cost of up to around £30,000. Members of the Joint Committee had also asked us to write to members of, to Scottish and UK government, requesting their financial support on a revenue basis towards the costs of that final evaluation, recognising that it wasn't something that we would have otherwise have been doing but for the inclusion of it within their guidance. We received a letter back from governments, a joint letter from them, recognising the great work that's happened within the deal, but highlighting that their funding contribution to the deal has always been to date capital only, and that they wouldn't be providing any revenue support towards that final evaluation. Through the plan that we have developed, we've indicated when we think we would need to start commissioning work to enable not just the final evaluation report, but all aspects of the programme closure to be undertaken in a timely manner. And the plan there is detailed at Appendix A. What we've tried to do within that plan is to outline the various roles and responsibilities within that, so where Programme Board will have oversight and where Joint Committee will also have oversight, and we'll see progress reported back, most likely I would think on a quarterly basis as we move towards the closure. Councillor Allard asked earlier about flexibility from governments in terms of that closure. I think I've said before, but just to reiterate, governments have indicated to us that the timelines that they set out within the closure guidance are guidance. They do recognise Aberdeen is the first deal to go through the closure process, and that obviously bringing reports back through joint committee we feel is absolutely the right thing to do, but it does add in a little bit of additional time to make sure that we prepare the reports and present the reports and pick up in any action. So I do still feel that there is a little bit of space there if we do need additional time on any of these pieces, but certainly what we're trying to do at the moment is make sure that we progress with the actions in a timely and effective manner. And at this moment in time, we're on track with those.
Thank you very much, Mr. Buse. Very helpful. Any questions or comments? Online, Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to probe a bit in terms of, sorry, I've got a frog in my throat now, typical, isn't it? I just really wanted, I suppose, to seek a bit more assurance around the post-deal governance and risk. For any of the projects that extend beyond March 2027, I just wanted to know what governance and reporting arrangements will replace the deal structures, and how the Joint Committee will be assured that risks, benefits realisation and asset responsibilities remain clearly accountable after the closure.
It's not a question that I can give you an absolute answer to, but it is something that we'll bring back in our future reports in terms of what those options are. Officers have started to look at what those options would look like and ensuring that there is still the oversight of any remaining projects, because that's the structure that's been there in terms of the governance around the deal, but also recognising that the majority of the projects will have closed. So in terms of what does that look like, and how do we try and ensure that we're not calling joint committees overly regularly, but that we make sure that there is sufficient scrutiny and assurance for members as well. So my expectation is probably around September we would bring back a report with the options once we've worked through those.
Can I just come back, Chair?
Of course, yeah.
So a timeline, you're looking at September. That's the timeline, starting in September, or?
Yeah, we'd look to bring a report back in September that would outline the options and seek a view from the Joint Committee as to how they would like us to progress from that sort of period beyond March, and that would give options around the types of governance structure that could look like.
Yeah, are you content, Councillor Owen? Yeah. Thank you. Any other question or comment in the room or online? No, thank you very much, Mr. Buse. Are we happy to approve? Yes, thank you. We'll go to the next item agenda. 10 is page 45 to 46, and I believe it's Mr. Macquarie, Paul Macquarie online.
Good morning, everyone. If you bear with me a second, I'll bring the report up on the screen. The digital stakeholder lead post. So in terms of this post, the officer has been leading the work around the Digital Challenge Fund. In addition to that, the officer continues to support connectivity across the region, acting as a liaison between the deal, both councils and governments, as we see the rollout of the remainder of the Urban 100 scheme and Project Gigabit. I think recognising where we are, we still have elements of the digital workstream still to deliver, and as such, it's proposed that we extend the post for the remainder of the deal period. And thereafter, Aberdeenshire Council will review the need for the post with a view to creating provision within the Economic Development Service to provide that service if and when we deem it necessary to do so. But for now, the recommendations in the report are that the post be extended for a further 12 months until the end of the deal. Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCarry. Any question online or in the room? Mr. McCarry, you're quite confident that the remaining £96,000 available to support the work stream activities will be enough till the end of March 2027? We're going to have an underspend and overspend?
No, I think it's an adequate budget, and it's recognising that we'll continue to support the activity of that officer and closing any gaps in connectivity that still remain as we get to the end of the deal. But in addition to that, supporting the digital working group in terms of the delivery of the projects that we've discussed on the previous item today. Thanks, Chair.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. McCarry. So it's good to hear that confidence. Are we happy to approve if there's no more question or comment? Yep. So we'll go in item agenda 11, external transposition links to Aberdeen South Harbour progress report. And I believe it Mr. Mackay. Oh, Mr. Stevenson.
Thanks, convener. Just to update you on the progress of the project. The designs now are largely in place and ready for procurement. The statutory undertakers, we have all the C4 estimates from all the statutory undertakers, so it's just waiting the issue of the C5s, which is the pre-ordering of materials. In terms of Network Rail, it's one of the few outstanding land issues that we have, but the property teams met last week to agree their drafting heads of terms, so that is progressing there. In terms of the other land element was the acquisition of land from the KLTR, which we now have. That's now been completed, so we're progressing with a second investing declaration, which will allow us to have control of all the land required for the scheme. We have now, on the completion of the design, we have been able to prepare the bill of quantities and update the scheme estimate for the project. The procurement will then progress shortly. We do have to finalise the contract documents. They will need to be reviewed externally or by colleagues in legal. There are some ongoing discussions about the use of project bank accounts, which is a requirement of the framework. That still needs to be resolved with colleagues. And largely, it is really a process where we're getting towards we're in a position that we can put the contract out to procurement. So we are running slightly behind schedule still. But we do feel that we're still within the sort of the funding envelope of timescales. So we're still on track to have the road open before the end of when we have access to funds.
That's good to hear, Mr. Stevenson. I know that Next Road Rail is always very difficult to work with, so I wish you all the best to make sure that we stay on budget. That's the most important for us. Any question or comments? Oh, Councillor Owen.
Thank you very much. Just two questions, really. And I heard what was said previously, but what practical steps are being taken to stop any further delays to the key stages of this project, given it has already slipped at ITT final approval and construction start? And also, how confident is the project team that the project will stay within budget when the contract is awarded, especially with ongoing global cost increases and supply chain issues? Thank you very much.
You're absolutely right, Councillor. When inflation, we're not master of the inflation. Who would like to answer? Mr. Mackay.
Through you, convener. And in terms of the first part of the question around delays that being incurred with interactions with third parties, certainly the project team share frustration of committee and how those have delayed over the number of individual parties that they have escalated and try to make sure in terms of making it clear to them the effects on the project, and also trying to get their engagement. It has moved on in a number of areas substantially, but there are, as Mr. Stevenson referred to, a couple of things that still need to get over the line, and we're impressing on those statutory bodies and partners that we need to conclude those as soon as possible, and the team and others that are assisting it are very much focused on making sure that those pieces are resolved to allow the tendering stage to commence. On the second part of the question, as stated within the report, the scheme estimate is within the envelope that's been made available. As a general comment on global trading and tensions that are there, that very much I think the committee will appreciate a moving picture that changes week to week. Its effects on supply and cost are extremely difficult to predict, and one that beyond the contingencies that have already been made within the project, we can't settle on a further figure or an amount for that, although the main element will be, as we go to tender and to the final business case, that response from the market will be where we get figures that we can relay back to committee as to where that position is. As I say, with such a changing picture, it's very difficult for the project to indicate what actual effect that will have at the time we go to market.
Thank you, Mr. Mackay. Blame us politician for sensitivity. Councillor Wen, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just to pursue it. I think we all probably know that various projects that we've all been trying to start or actually have started, the increase in the goods and services has been quite astronomical, and I think that really does have to be borne in mind. You could actually be looking at double the price, and I think that's actually quite important for people to understand here and now, because the volatility is huge, and I think that has to be taken into account.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And through you, Kabir, absolutely. And as I say, at the point that we receive offers from the market and we're at the final business case stage, yes, that volatility will then be crystallised in prices that we receive. And I suppose at this point in time that there are no guarantees as to what that price looks like, and we'll inform committee at the time we have that information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mackay. Councillor Radley.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the second vesting, is there any sort of timescale for this to be completed? I think I heard you say that the project timescale hasn't slipped particularly. I'm just looking for a bit of reassurance around that. Should that process take longer than expected?
Mr. Stevenson.
So, excuse me, the second general vesting declaration, we are updating title searches, so we have to refresh the title information before we can progress that. There is then a time limited process. However, excuse me, there is quite a low level of risk associated with the second general vesting declaration, so I think there's a discussion about whether that will prevent us from going out to procurement. I don't think that there's a significant level of risk associated with that process itself. It's just something that needs to be done.
Okay, that's your reassure, Councillor Radley. Any more question? We've got Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Chair. Some questions for Mr. Mackay. Given the global uncertainty just now and rise in borrowing, government borrowing, etc., costs for 30-year skills, etc., are these worked into the cost projections too, and is there any measures within the tender process to go for fixed price? Thanks.
Mr. Mackay.
So in terms of any effects on the borrowing side, we're working within the grant funding envelope that has been agreed, and we're not anticipating that the funding from governments will be altered through the deal. In terms of the contract type, the current proposal is around a fixed rates remeasurable project, which is similar to other civil infrastructure projects that have been progressed through the authority. So there is a degree of certainty around the price in that, but not as a lump sum as potentially you were describing, but at the point of tender around any fluctuations in price about supply and things would be locked in at that stage. So it does give us confidence on award around any further fluctuations, whether that be material supply or fuel, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any more questions and comments? No? So let's switch. Good luck to Mr. Stevenson and Mr. Mackay, just to make sure that we get that sorted. You will know my views on this. I'm very clear, like Sir Ian Wood, we should have started that a long time ago and not waited till the end of the committee program to go ahead. But we are where we are, and I'm pleased to hear that it's still on budget. Are we happy to note? Yeah. Thank you very much. So we'll go straight into item number 12, which is page 51 to 58. And this is Mr. Finch, who's going to put it. Paul.
Thank you very much, Chair. As we work through the programme of projects that we've initiated under the Strategic Transport Appraisal, we're increasingly coming to projects that are now coming to an end or a closure, and this is one of those projects. The project originally started with, let's look at developing hydrogen refuelling, perhaps out with Aberdeen city area into Aberdeenshire to expand that freight capabilities. After doing some work on that area, we pivoted towards looking at battery electric vehicle technologies and what would the recharging and technologies be required for that. You'll be aware that the region is heavily dependent on logistics as part of the energy sector and a part of our energy transition. And in terms of battery electric freight vehicles, there's an awful lot of activity in terms of policy, project and research at the moment. The work that we have done with logistics providers, with stakeholders, has set out quite clearly how the region should be positioning itself in terms of this future technologies and that recharging requirements, and how we see a pathway going forward with potentially shared depots or shared facilities in the first instance as the infrastructure and the vehicles start coming into the market. So the report that we have concluded provides that pathway. It sets out some example designs for that shared facility, and it also reports on the risks and uncertainties that we'll need to mitigate, or the market will have to mitigate as we go forward. As we go forward. So I believe that the work we've done provides a strong foundation for future work out with the bid period, but also importantly in terms of also helping our economies adapt and change to these new technologies as we move forward in the next few years, of which there is increasing interest in due to the aforementioned volatility in fuel prices and that side of things for our economies. So the recommendations are to note the completion of the BEV HGV feasibility study and acknowledging how that work has created a strong regional basis to position the North East as investment ready for upcoming national freight decarbonisation programmes and opportunities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I won't declare an interest. I was an HGV business for a long time, but I'm pleased to see that we are moving forward as a region, and it's important that we trailblazing this. Maybe Alistair Camelford from Transport Scotland want to add anything? No, we're quite happy with that. Oh, the last item, sorry. Any question to Paul? Any comments? No. So we are happy to acknowledge and to note. Yes. And we'll go, as Mr. Finch said, to the next item. And sorry, page 59 to 68, which is agenda 13. And At this time, we've got Mr. Finch. Maybe you'll talk. You'll start, Mr. Finch. Here we go. Paul.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. We're just every 6 months we reflect on the progress of the 2 Memorandum of Understanding transport projects, which were announced alongside the deal, but not part of the deal. When we kicked this off in 2016, they were the £200 million investment in rail improvements between the Central Belt and Aberdeen, and also Lawrence Kirk Junction improvements. Every 6 months, we've invited progress reports from Transport Scotland on those 2 aspects, and they are included as appendices to the cover report going forward. The recommendation is to note the progress, although as the report says, there has been progress on the development of the strategy for rolling stock in terms of Aberdeen to Central Belt rail improvements, and there's been a clarity on the phasing of that work, which initially will concentrate towards the Dundee, Arbroath, Montrose end of the work, with the Aberdeen work coming in future phases as the work progresses northbound. In terms of Lawrence Kirk Junction improvement scheme, although all the appropriate objections to the scheme have been resolved, Transport Scotland still works through the necessary processes prior to finalising, I think, the final order publication for that scheme. So that's a high-level summary of where we are. And I say Alistair is also online, so perhaps he can give a very quick update on anything additional that I didn't say in terms of the rail aspects. Mr. Camelford.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Paul, for your introduction and summary there. I think you've covered most of it off. The particular thing I would just draw people's attention to is in late March, there was an announcement by ScotRail that the HST fleet is going to be replaced, and a fleet has been identified to replace them. Those trains are planned to start arriving in 2027, and they will complete a replacement of the HST fleet by 2028. So that's a class 222 trains that will be arriving, and they'll be supplemented by 67 million pounds rather of refurbishment costs that will be funded through the Scottish Government to totally modernise the trains, so they'll feel very much like a new train when they arrive. In terms of the service improvement projects, design works continue at a pace as outlined in the summary paper, and we continue to make good progress in delivering detailed design.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Councillor Yule.
Thanks, Chair. Just on the last answer, I think the departure of the high-speed trains is going to be regretted by many because they are very popular. And can just confirm that what's actually happening, despite the refurbishment, is that very old trains are being replaced with old trains.
I would dispute your generalisation of them as being replaced with old trains. In terms of rolling stock life, in the industry, we wouldn't regard the replacement trains as old. They are very much at sort of midlife in terms of rolling stock, and they are going to undergo a very extensive refurbishment, so they will feel very much like new trains once they arrive.
True, I'm past midlife, so I'm considered old, but maybe not. Councillor Yule.
You can't be old because you're almost as old as I am. So maybe the word old was inappropriate. Could we settle on pre-loved?
Yeah, I could agree. Pre-loved, Councillor Ian. Yes. Yeah, you. Sorry.
We got Councillor Owen next.
Thank you very much, and me up the northern side to Ellen, Peterhead, Fraserburgh. I think we would love any type of train, to be perfectly honest, because of course the train stops at Aberdeen, so any train is probably better than none. But I wanted to concentrate on the A90 Lawrence Kirk grade separated junction, and just kind of probe a wee bit to try and find out what the specific issues or risks are preventing Transport Scotland from publishing statutory decision orders or a delivery timetable for these schemes, and what actions are being taken to resolve them.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. As I sit within the rail team, I'll have to take that one away and share it with my roads colleagues. So unfortunately, I can't give you an answer to that at the moment.
Yes, and unfortunately we weren't able to secure a Transport Scotland representative from that particular project, Councillor Owen. Your points are well made and noted. We discussed this when we had our stakeholder meeting with them in January. At that point, the indication was that they would be at the point of publishing those orders in the next few months, was the phrase they used at that particular meeting. So I went away from that meeting with a degree of confidence about that progress. Obviously, that didn't happen, and I think the question is valid, and I will follow up with that in order to provide a robust answer for that particular question.
Thanks very much.
Any other questions or comment online or in the room? No, if it is not, can we note the progress of each of the Transport Memorandum of Understanding projects being progressed by Transport Scotland? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Finch. We'll go to the next item agenda, which is now, as we agreed at the start, we'll go into private. Thank you. Agenda 16.